the way that Jon Jones has come into this game at such a young age, it is not quite human.
Jon Jones, the UFC heavyweight champion, has grown into one of the most recognizable faces in the sport. But he's not done yet. In this interview before his upcoming bout against Glover Teixeira, he offered an in-depth and candid look into his career, his brand, and his future. You have this amazing story about being a kid, growing up in upstate New York. You have two brothers that are in the NFL.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Your father is a Baptist minister.
Pentecostal
Minister.
Yeah, pastor.
We all know kids who have brothers that are all good athletes, but it's very rare for all of them to get to the highest, most elite level of their respective sport. What was it that led you there?
You know, I would have to start with my parents. You know, my parents, they gave us a great foundation. You know, they always taught us how to work hard. They were really passionate about sports, and you know, they just gave us a lot of confidence. You know, they always uplifted us and kept us in different camps and things like that.
Was your dad an athlete?
Yeah, my dad wrestled. He was a wrestler. My mom is not an athlete at all. But yeah, just a good upbringing.
She's tall, right?
Yeah, she's about 5'10". Yeah, she's about your height.
Okay, she's tall.
Little knock on you. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, just great parenting, really. That's all.
Were they really disciplined, though? Did they really stay on you about being committed to what you were doing?
My dad was. He took sports very seriously, almost to the point where it wasn't fun at times. You know, he would, if he saw us not giving our full effort, you know, we would hear about it for a whole week after the competition was over. And then it got to a point in like high school where he would give us, you know, $3 if we get a pin, things like that. So he taught us, you know, if you work hard and if you win, you know, apply yourself, you can make a living off of doing what you love, and all three of us are now pro athletes.
You were a wrestler, and you also did play some football. Were you a good football player?
I was a terrible football player. I was the worst. Yeah, and it sucks because my two brothers were always the team captains. They were always the starter. They were always the guy who played on both the offense and the defense. And I was like third string. I just didn't get it. I didn't get the plays. It just wasn't my thing.
But MMA has really opened up a lot of opportunities for guys who, you were a national champion wrestler, and for a lot of guys that wrestled, there wasn't this opportunity to go pro.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, MMA has opened so many doors in my life, and I'm so glad it's here now and bigger than ever. Wrestling throughout college, you know, you think to yourself, you know, once I'm done with this senior year or whatnot, it's over for me. My athletic career is over. Either you can maybe go to the Olympics, which very few do, or maybe be a wrestling coach, and that wasn't my interest at all. So I found MMA shortly after, and I'm glad I did.
How do you become an MMA fighter seriously, professional?
So, you know, when I got done with school, I was pretty much putting in applications to be a police officer in the towns around where I had grown up, and I wasn't getting hired. So I just started bouncing in the meantime, and I had a kid that went to my high school who I didn't know personally. He wrote me a message on MySpace, and he said, "Hey John, I see your pictures on MySpace, and I see that you like to have your shirt off and, you know, pose with your fist stuff and stuff like that." He's like, "I think you'd be a great MMA fighter. You should think about giving it a try." And I asked him for information of a gym that he knew of, and he gave me the information of a gym that was about an hour away. I read that message on a Saturday, and by Wednesday, I started training mixed martial arts, and I haven't looked back since.
What is the name of that kid?
You know, I think his name was Gary, and I don't know him too well. I connected with him a little bit, but I owe that kid a great deal.
Have you seen him since you
haven't seen him.
The man you are today? Wow,
I haven't
that's crazy.
Seen him. I invited him to my 6th pro fight. It wasn't in the UFC. He came, and I haven't seen him since.
Okay. You're really conscious about wanting to build your brand. You've done a really good job with that. You've gotten some really high-profile sponsorships deals. What is your strategy in terms of your brand? What do you want it to be?
Well, you know, I want it to be at the highest, you know, the highest that it can go. And right now, I think I'm well on my way to, you know, being up there with some of the biggest stars in sports right now. You know, I just closed the deal with Gatorade.
Yeah, which was a big deal for you.
Which was huge. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, a few years ago, you said, I want to get Nike and I want to get Gatorade.
Yeah.
And those were your benchmarks. Why was it important to get those? What do they symbolize for you?
What it symbolized to me is just that being mainstream, you know, in our sport, not really being that mainstream. I think it's important for me to be that guy who, you know, that trailblazer, the guy who's opening doors for the whole sport. You know, I look at myself as you know, Tiger Woods, you know, the way he brought exposure and brought these mainstream endorsers to golf. Guys like, you know, Michael Jordan, you know, being one of the first basketball players to bring Nike around. You know, the Michael Phelps, you know, pretty much the guys who let the world know what they do and get the guys to actually care what they do. So, yeah, at all times I'm really focusing on my brand to enhance the whole sport.
You mentioned Tiger Woods, you mentioned Michael Phelps, both guys that have had their own challenges.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure on you young guys to be perfect. When you got your DUI, what was going through your mind when you were in that car, in the back seat of the car?
You know what? I was actually front seat, you know, front row and center. It was a really embarrassing moment for me, you know, especially because you know, I had so many great sponsors. We'll still have so many great sponsors. I actually had Bud Light at the time, ironically. That didn't last long. It was a really embarrassing experience for me. You know, alcohol makes people do silly things, and until that point, I had done everything perfectly in my career. Really doing my best to be a great role model and examples for young kids, and that was a major setback.
What did your dad say?
My dad was really upset. You know, he didn't realize that I actually drank, and you know, I was, you know, well over drinking age. But he was really upset at the time, and the biggest thing for us was just to look at it and just try to let people know, hey, listen, I made a mistake. I'm not perfect by any means, and just continue to move forward and try to do things better in the future and things like that. And you know, I think I've rebounded from that, you know, great.
Well, you have your deals intact, which
everything. I lost the Bud Light deal, but I've actually gained a lot more sponsors since then. So,
okay.
So yeah, definitely wasn't one of the highlights of my career, but something I went through. And alcohol makes people do silly things. So, yeah. As
you move forward, what's really fascinating about the UFC is it is huge.
Yeah.
I talked with Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta. And Dana even went as far as to say, we're bigger than the NFL. We're neck and neck with soccer.
Ooh,
which was a controversial statement in itself. But how do you measure, seriously, the popularity of the UFC and how big do you expect it to get?
You know, the thing about the UFC is it's so international, you know. And so Lorenzo saying that we're neck and neck with soccer, I don't know if I agree with that.
It was Dana who said that.
Oh, okay. Sounds like something Dana would say. I think what he meant by that was, you know, the UFC is extremely international. Every year we're tapping into new countries. You know, with a sport like MMA, you don't need anything. It's kind of like with soccer. All you need is a ball. MMA, all you need is ambition and the willingness to learn, and you can be a great fighter. So right now we have fighters from Cuba, Brazil. I mean, literally, you name the country, all over the world. MMA gyms are opening it up. So we're getting really big, and I'm just really happy to be here at this time during this explosion. One thing I do realize is that every athlete from every other sport watches MMA. When basketball players aren't playing basketball games, they're watching MMA. Soccer players are watching MMA. My biggest fans, sometimes I notice when I do things like the ESPYs, are other athletes. I mean,
who are some of your biggest fans?
Man, I've had Ray Lewis ask me for pictures. Just got done doing Kelly and Michael, and Michael was so happy to have me there.
Well, I mean, you're a superstar. I mean,
I wouldn't consider myself a superstar.
No, I mean, until you get decisively beaten, there's really no. You're the Floyd Mayweather of UFC.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here in this position.
Mayweather makes a lot of money.
Yes, he does.
This is a guy who, over time, will probably gross over $1 billion for the sport of boxing. How do you feel about the kind of wide chasm of difference between the pay of UFC fighters at their peak and boxers at their peak? Because you're putting in the same amount of work and you're getting your head pounded in.
Oh, not me.
Well, not you.
Yeah.
But you're really putting in a lot.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, the thing about Floyd Mayweather is the guy's been undefeated for like 17 years. I mean, I've been undefeated for 6 years, and I've become a multimillionaire doing that. So for 17 years, I mean, that's a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount of discipline and dedication and sacrifice this guy's been going through. So I think he deserves everything that he has. I mean, he also owns his own promotion. So, I mean, he's writing his own checks to himself, so that changes things. And the biggest difference between boxing and MMA when it comes to the pay rate, I would have to say, is boxing is, you know, you got about 5 guys, maybe 10 at the most, who are making millions of dollars, where everyone else almost, I would imagine, is making maybe $50,000 a year. So I think Dana White, over the last, I don't know, 15 years or something, has created something like 40 multimillionaires. That's something I think I can confidently say that boxing hasn't done.
Do you think that by the time your career is over, before your career is over, you could step in the ring and somehow, some way, figure out how to make $10 million?
I think my time will come. Yeah, and the UFC is a fairly new sport. I mean, we just had our 20-year anniversary, I think this year, where boxing has well over a 100-year-old sport. So it's kind of hard to compare to something that's had such a great head start on us.
And it could be that you may not be here to be the beneficiary of it, but that the guys behind you.
Right. But one of my personal goals is to leave the sport better than what it was when I came here. And that's why I try so hard to be a great ambassador for our sport and to open up all these mainstream endorsers.
It's probably too early to ask this question, but how long do you see your career going for?
So I'm 26. I've been doing this for 6 years now, so most of my 20s. And my plan is to retire at 35, the latest.
And why?
Why is that?
Yeah, why?
You know, just to leave the sport with a good head on my shoulders.
You're not going to be Bernard Hopkins.
No, that's no disrespect to Bernard. I think what he's done is phenomenal. I mean, I really admire that guy. But yeah, I like to leave the sport with a great head on my shoulders. You know, MMA it can be a dangerous sport. All contact sports can be dangerous sports, and I think that I have a lot of potential to do a lot of other things when I retire from MMA.
How do you feel about your condition in terms of your brain? Is it something that you worry about? Like
oh yeah, absolutely.
Concussions? Have you had?
Absolutely. I've had about maybe 2 concussions in the last 6 years.
Okay.
So I think I'm doing really good.
How does it change you?
You know, I don't know. I don't feel changed at all.
Okay.
I feel amazing. I feel amazing. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm on top of the world. My family's happy. I'm happy. Business life is doing great. I feel great. You know, I don't think it changes you at all. I mean, obviously, there's been, you know, a lot of people who have suffered from concussions, like Muhammad Ali and these guys.
Is it tough to see that as being a fighter yourself? Yeah,
but that's the difference with MMA. You know, us MMA fighters, we take a lot less brain damage because of all the different ways there are to win a fight. You know, I could take a guy down right away and submit him and tap him out, or there's the TKO, or I've seen some guys lose due to leg kicks. Yeah. Where you get kicked in the leg so many times, you can't take another kick, and he'll ask the referee to stop the fight. So yeah.
But the key is that you are not getting up after being knocked down 3 times.
I think it's crazy.
The repetitive motion of being hit in the head.
I think it's crazy. I respect boxing. I'm a boxing fan. But I do think it's crazy that, you know, guy gets a big hit, he gets a concussion. In the NFL or MMA, you're out for almost a half a year. You know, they make sure you recover. In boxing, they make you stand back up when you probably should be backstage seeking medical attention. They make you stand back up to get knocked down again, and you can get knocked down up to 3 times in one bout. I think that's wild. So yeah, MMA is a pretty safe sport when you compare it.
Who is your favorite fighter, MMA?
MMA fighter, I would have to say Anderson Silva from Brazil. Yeah, he's a 12-time world champion.
Yeah.
Right now I'm a 7-time world champion, and I'm working my tail off to catch up to that guy.
Would that have been a good fight?
It would have been a phenomenal fight. It would have been definitely probably the biggest fight in UFC history.
Yeah. So what will the biggest fight be in UFC history? Will you'll be in it, so who will it be?
I hope. Let's hope I will be in it.
You and who else?
I'd say Cain Velasquez, our heavyweight champion.
What do you feel about when people say, well, he's not fighting the right people, or he's running from people? You hear that criticism against Mayweather, where people say that he's kind of picking his opponents and avoiding Manny Pacquiao and other fighters. Right. But it's also a business decision, right? To some extent. Yeah, and timing.
Right. MMA is definitely a business, and obviously we do it for pleasure or whatnot. And,
so how do you choose a fighter that you're going to fight against?
What I like to do is I like to fight new opponents at all times. I don't like doing rematches too much or things like that. I will do it when the time comes necessary. But I like trying to take over the world. And in order to do that, I need to fight different guys from different countries as much as possible to expand my brand globally. For example, my last opponent was from Sweden. We had a really close fight, and a lot of the fans wanted to see a rematch. But I just entertained the Swedish audience. Now it's time for me to move on, and so I chose to fight a guy that's from Brazil, guy that I'm fighting on 26 who hasn't lost in 5 years.
Yeah. Is it unfair when people say that you're dodging opponents?
I've learned not to make business decisions off of the masses, and I need to do what's right for my brand. So whether it's fair or not, who cares? I've made the decision.
Well, it's funny because you're not denying the reality that it is a business.
Oh yeah,
and that
very
it's not just about, I want to fight this guy because I feel like he's the closest to me in the sport. That it's about timing, and that there are a lot of variables and factors that you have to weigh in, not just for your sake, but also for the UFC.
Absolutely.
So that is a true statement.
That is 100% true.
So who do you want to fight the most?
Who would I like to fight the most? Well, right now, Glover Teixeira, the guy that I'm fighting this weekend. You know, I have a lot of goals. I have goals to catch up to Anderson Silva, goals to defeat some guys in the UFC right now that would definitely qualify me as being the greatest of all time if I defeat them. But step one would be Glover Teixeira, and I got to take it one project at a time.
And you're gonna fight Cain.
Cain Velasquez, that's inevitable. Yeah, that fight's gonna happen. I'm growing, getting stronger and bigger, and I think that's what the world wants to see.
Okay. What about post-career?
Post-career,
what do you think you'll do when your career's over?
You know what? I think I'm a fairly good-looking guy, and I would love to act.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to act, and you know, I would like to have some of my own foundations, be very successful and things like that. Get into some foundations, and just start giving back in different ways.
What kind of roles do you see yourself playing?
Oh man, I think action would be my easiest avenue.
Okay.
You know, because I am a martial artist, and you know, action movies. Yeah, doing the tough guy role. But I would like to get into playing, you know, all types of characters. You know, I really want to model my acting career off of Dwayne Johnson. You know, someone who started off in a similar field. You know, he did WWF. I'm a UFC fighter, and you know, now he does all types of roles, and
he's built an empire.
He has. I mean, he's a billion-dollar man.
Have you met him?
I haven't met him, but we share the same manager, Ari Gold, and Ari Emanuel. I'm sorry. And
Little Entourage.
Yeah. You
Shout
watch
out.
it? Do you watch it?
Oh yeah, looking forward to the movie.
Yeah. So we share the same manager, and I think we will be working together in the future for sure.
All the way from upstate New York,
yes,
the son
sir.
of a Pentecostal minister.
Yes, the son of a preacher, man.
Jon Jones.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
And with Jon Jones, I'm Lee Hawkins. We'll see you next time.